Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this video. Today's video we are going to be looking at episode 8, season 1, and this is part 2 to Elysian Drift. We are getting into it now. We're getting pretty deep. Let me see. I do have sinus congestion and drainage and all that good stuff, so I'm liable to be making some really noises like that all through this video, and I apologize up front for that, just because it is what it is, but because I don't feel good, and it honestly doesn't sound that bad, or that good on the video, I should say, but it is what it is, so let's get into it.
Like I mentioned on an earlier episode, my parents were killed in a ferry accident in 2007. It was Valentine's Day, their 30th wedding anniversary.
I don't know. The idea of getting married on Valentine's Day, sounds cool and all, but I don't think that's something I'd want to do. I mean, then again, me and my wife got married on the Ides of March, so it's, for those of you that are history fans, that has all the Julius Caesar stuff going on that. But you know, that's part of the reason why we did it. But it's interesting how different people look at when to get married and on what day to get married. It's just kind of interesting. But that has nothing to do with the story. It's just something I wanted to drop in.
I wouldn't describe my relationship with my parents as incredibly close. I was really close with my brother, but our parents were always busy. I understood that they loved my brother and me. It's just that they were working all the time. So there weren't a whole bunch of family vacations or trips abroad. I took piano lessons, played sports, swimming and camping, and did the rest of the normal things kids did. But sometimes it felt like my parents, and I'm not saying this to be mean, because it resulted in me becoming a fiercely questioning, independent child. But sometimes it felt like they just did the minimum.
But see, that there, for me, is a telltale sign of how we as Gen X grew up. And that's and a lot of millennials grew up that way. In fact, my wife is from this really weird, her parents are late boomers on the cusp of Gen X. And she was born a millennial. But her parents being boomers and not Xers, she grew up in pretty much a Gen X household. So you can't just write off all millennials. And that's I kind of think that the character Carly is either late Gen X on the cusp of millennial, or early millennial, just because of just the way how the generations are broke down, and this whole being fiercely independent, having to rely on yourself type of mentality is kind of that there. It's the blending, and the people that have these traits, and I think them to be very good traits. Some people would probably disagree with me, but it is what it is, and I believe that that is a good character trait for Carly.
When it came to parenting, I wasn't around when they raised my brother, but he told me things were remarkably similar during his childhood. Our parents clearly had other things on their minds. They both worked for a company called Arabali Abraxas as consultants, and when they weren't at the office, they took their work home with them. I never understood what they did, what being a consultant meant, and to be honest, even after 2 university degrees and a whole bunch of life experience, I'm still a little unclear on what a consultant does.
And that is interesting. I find that funny because my mother-in-law, before she retired, was an auditor of auditors. When she worked for Dow Chemical, and when the auditors went in and audited a plant or a facility or something, she came in behind the auditors and audited what they did. And the whole thing of exactly what she did and how she did it, the whole thing about the whole consultant thing, not knowing exactly what they do, that just to me kind of strikes a togetherness. For me it links it together. I mean, my brain is messed up, but it just, for some reason, that concept works for me. Works really well for me, I should say.
Other than provide some kind of opinion about something. I was born in San Francisco, so my parents were in the Bay Area during the period Jones suggests they were involved with the Gatwick Institute.
I'm not sure, but I think it gets revealed. I'm not, like I said, I may be crossing this over in my brain with another story, but I think the company that her parents actually work for is a shell company for the Gateway Institute. But that's, I may be crossing it with something else I've read or something else, but I think that's how it plays out.
You're certain my parents were a part of this Gatwick Institute?
I initially found their names on a sign-up list, and after a bit more digging, I discovered both of our parents' names, along with a few others, had been redacted from a handful of other documents.
What does that mean?
It means your parents were there. They were definitely part of the Institute.
What was supposed to be happening there?
Well, they advertised as a kind of self-help scientific research organization, very similar to Werner Eckhart's EST or Hubbard's Dianetics, on the surface.
But beneath the surface?
Things were a bit closer to the Stanford prison experiment.
And now, I'm not going to go into the Stanford prison experiment, but I will tell you, it is, if you don't know anything about it, it is worth the time and effort to look it up, research it, because it should, most normal human beings, it should scare the fuck out of you about what they did in that experiment. And then you cross that knowledge into this particular passage, and things get kind of weird.
It turns out they were an offshoot of MK Ultra.
MK Ultra too. That I had completely forgot about the shout out to MK Ultra in this series. That's really, and that too. That whole MK Ultra thing is another thing that should scare the shit out of you. What your government, or what any government, not only the American government, but any government with too much power, wanting more power can do. Like I said, MK Ultra is also something else that you may want to do some serious study in, and don't do it in a dark room at night because it will scare the shit out of you.
The military LSD thing?
Yes.
People staring at goats.
MK Ultra was a spin-off of Operation Paperclip.
Okay, this thing locked up. I don't know why. We're going to stop, and I'm going to have to edit and figure out what the fuck's going on. Okay, we're back. Have no idea what happened, but my browser that I use to do listen to the podcast unlocked up on me, and I had to get it unlocked. So we'll see what we get here.
It turns out they were an offshoot of MK Ultra.
A little bit of overlap here.
The military LSD thing?
Yes.
People staring at goats.
MK Ultra was a spin-off of Operation Paperclip. They were allegedly working on all kinds of, well, terrible shit, including mind control and biological weapons.
And the sad part is as much as this is fiction, and a really good fiction, there are things in fiction that I think somebody in the Pentagon or someplace like that is like, hey, did you hear about this story? Hey, let's do that. For some, that just that's my opinion. We'll call it opinion, and that's just the way things go, or seems like it goes sometimes.
They were also involved in recruiting Nazi scientists to help them with their research. This was around 1945.
Nazis.
Yeah. They were willing to do anything to gain an advantage at this point. Paperclip became MK Ultra, which ran from 1951 until 1973. In 1967, they were ordered to cut it way back, and that's when a more dedicated faction of the group branched off and created the Gatwick Institute.
And see, what I would wonder in this universe, that a mathematician by the name of Theodore Kaczynski, in this universe, would he have continued with the Gateway Institute, or would he still have went on to do the things that he did? That's just an interesting, with the reality shifts, the possible parallel universes and stuff in this universe, in this story, this thing. That would be something that I would think would be kind of cool to explore, as if Theodore Kaczynski never became the Unabomber. I think that would be something pretty cool to think about.
And what did this more dedicated faction do?
Well, they did a lot of the same things MK Ultra was interested in. They continued the search for a super truth serum and took part in Subproject 54, the Navy's top-secret concussion program, using suboral frequency blasts to erase memory.
They could do that? Use sound to erase memory?
Allegedly, yes.
Wow.
That would be interesting. I mean, I have voluntarily put different, let's just call them intoxicants, into my body that play hell with your memory, but to do it, to have it done to you and not know what's going on would be interesting. And the whole fact of using sound, that is something I may have to do in my spare time to see how well that worked, or if it's something that they mixed in to the story that's what's the word I'm looking for? That's fictional, that they mixed it in and made it very plausible as part of the story. So that's just one of those things. One of those things that, you know, I like. It causes you to go out and look for things. That's one of the reasons why I love the Public Radio Alliance and the Minnow Beats Well stuff, is because they give you this awesome mixture of stuff. And if your brain operates like mine, and God, I hope it doesn't, because there's a lot of bad that comes with the good. But if you're one of those inquisitive people that wants to know and learn the separate fact from fiction, anything that is put out by, like I said, Public Radio Alliance or Minnow Beats Well is great for that.
Yeah. But what they were most interested in, aside from the extensive thought experiments, was using a wide variety of drugs in an attempt to activate something within the pineal gland, something that was supposed to extend human consciousness.
Now, the pineal gland, I'm going to loop back to the people out there that read H.P. Lovecraft or watch really bad movies. H.P. Lovecraft did a story called From Beyond, and it deals with manipulating the pineal gland. And there was a really, really bad movie in the 80s. It's not, I can't say it's too bad because I've got a copy of it on Blu-ray by the same title, From Beyond. It has Jeffrey Combs in it. That's why I got it. But it becomes real sexual real fast, because if I remember correctly, scientists either have figured out or theorized that your pineal gland has a little bit to do, if not a lot to do, with your libido. So this gets really weird really fast, and I'm not sure if they put this in just as a bit of intrigue or if it's actually a call out to Lovecraft. So, you know, it's, you know, 6 one way, half a dozen the other.
DMT was their favorite, but they tried everything.
Dimethyltryptamine, naturally produced in the human body, and various plants around the world. And we'll just leave it there because I could do a whole video just on dimethyltryptamine or DMT.
I don't think my parents would have had anything to do with that kind of stuff. They were pretty conservative.
That's what I thought about my parents as well. But they were involved. Seriously involved. Both your parents and mine.
What makes you say that?
I found our parents' names somewhere else.
Where?
In 1973, most of MK Ultra's records were destroyed by then head of the CIA, Richard Helms. But the Gatwick Institute was separate. Is separate.
They're still active?
Yes.
And I do believe over the years where I've jumped into MK Ultra off and on, I believe that's a true statement that Helms actually caught a lot of crap for destroying all the MK Ultra research and records and stuff. So, like I said, I read so much, and here lately I've been on a Stephen King kick, but I read different genres, different things, and the whole I could see that being real, but I could also see it being real but tweaked a little bit. So, you know, it is what it is.
And I was able to find a research study team list from the mid-'80s.
Is this real?
It's real.
And there they were, my parents. They looked so young. I couldn't believe they were ever that young. I also couldn't believe how much my father looked like my brother back then. It was uncanny. They were standing in front of an austere, mid-century building made of glass and wood, with a group of about 10 other people. Some wore lab coats, some didn't. Most wore turtleneck sweaters. They had a serious, late 70s, early 80s science fiction B-movie vibe going.
I like that, because, see, that there, looping back to the whole thing on the pineal gland, is kind of nod in my viewpoint, or what kicks in my brain as a shout out to the Jeffrey Combs from Beyond movie, because it was a bad like I said, bad science fiction. It completely, other than the title, that's about the only. That's about as close as it gets to H.P. Lovecraft's story, but the whole bad movies that came out in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s after Star Wars, that were trying to cash in on that Star Wars phenomena. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
They looked like the crew of some kind of top-secret Apollo space mission. It wasn't the same building as the other photograph. I imagine the Gatwick Institute must have outgrown the smaller brick building at some point. Jones pointed out his parents. He seemed visibly upset just looking at them in a photo, and quickly brought back a picture of the building and minimized the photo featuring our parents. I thought they worked for Arabella Abraxas. I could never say that name as a kid.
Arabella Abraxas Incorporation was one of a dozen or so fronts for the Gatwick Institute. They also had a spa. And
there we go. It was a shell company, so yeah. I thought I had remembered that correctly.
Organic food farming setup and a recording studio in Los Angeles, among a bunch of other interests.
So, what happened at the Gatwick Institute? Jones? I'll have more details on the Gatwick Institute soon.
And now that we've had a kitty cameo, yeah, we're starting to get deep. We're going to start getting into a lot of the lore. This is a good... If you're interested in the novels, I still need to pick up the second novel, but the first Rabbids novel, this is a really good setup, and I'm getting ready to hurt a cat because he's playing with the camera. This is a really good setup. This podcast is a really good setup for the novels. So, yeah, I'm kind of watching my cat. He's being a bit of a pain in the ass right now. So, this could become a really interesting video.
But while I was sitting there with Jones, I received a call from Maury at Yumiko's gym. He told me that the courier who dropped the logic board off at the gym for Yumiko was at the new location, working out. I thanked him and told him we'd be right over.
Okay, what does this guy look like?
Maury said he had a few piercings.
A few piercings, or more of a Hellraiser kind of thing?
Oh. Wow. Hi there. Hey, can we go somewhere and talk for a few minutes?
There's a bar across the street. 15 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Half an hour later, the courier entered the bar. Hi, thanks.
That was a Texas 15 minutes, I guess.
Thanks for coming. My name is Carly. This is Jones. We're looking for my missing friend. Her name is Yumiko Takada.
What does that have to do with me?
Well, you dropped off a package for her at the gym. Well, at the other location. A while ago.
I did.
Yes.
Well, if you say so. I drop off a lot of shit.
You're a courier?
I do a lot of things.
Is one of those things acting as a courier?
What do you want?
We want to know who paid you to drop that logic board off for Yumiko.
You do you?
How much?
How much what?
How much money to answer a few questions?
Sounds like you only have the one question.
See, this is where it gets into... These are kind of the things that kind of... that kind of take me out of some things momentarily, is because for a lot of things that happen in these stories, your protagonist either has to have a wealthy benefactor or be wealthy themselves. So it's kind of a, kind of a thing, but, you have to kind of turn that suspended disbelief up a little bit higher sometimes.
What is wrong with you?
Your friend was terrified that somebody was following her.
What do you mean?
I mean, she was scared. He kept looking over her shoulder.
Wait, I thought you didn't... I thought Yumiko had already gone missing by the time you dropped off the logic board.
She had.
Okay, so then how did you know she was scared?
I saw it in her eyes when I met her outside her apartment.
When was this?
When I dropped off the other thing.
What other thing?
The postcard.
What postcard?
Just a regular postcard, a picture on the front, a few words on the back.
What words?
I don't remember.
Oh my god. What was the picture?
It was a lighthouse.
Do you remember what lighthouse?
I have no idea.
The plot gets thicker now.
Well, if I show you some pictures of lighthouses, could you point it out?
Maybe. Yeah, if you buy me another drink.
I pulled up about 100 lighthouses on my phone, including the two from Alaska, but he said that none of them looked familiar. I wanted to keep going through photos, and the courier was content to keep drinking the free beer, but Jones had seen enough. He pulled me out of there, a couple hours later.
This guy isn't going to tell us anything.
Well, he certainly isn't going to now.
I don't think he's a courier. At least, well, not exclusively. I think he works for Alan Scarpio.
Alan Scorpio is probably my second favorite minor character behind the magician.
Billionaire?
Yes.
The winner of 6.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
I've seen him before in pictures with Scarpio. He's kind of hard to miss.
Okay, but why would Alan Scarpio send Miko a Defender 2 logic board?
There's only one way to find out. Come on.
So, we went to visit a billionaire. Not as easy as it sounds, however. Turns out there are a lot of hoops to jump through, followed by a crocodile-infested moat, and more boring phone calls than you can possibly imagine. And still, after going through all of that, the answer was no.
That's because billionaires have all the time in the world to talk to anyone that wants to talk to them.
But eventually, my friend and former boss, Nick Silver, was able to use some old Public Radio Alliance connections to make it happen. Scarpio had a ranch outside of Whitefish, Montana. Nick got us 5 minutes with Scarpio. We flew out to Montana for those 5 minutes, which Alan Scarpio turned into 5 hours. He would
Yes, once again, they're using clock Texas time for their minutes.
not stop talking.
Hey, you know why they call it skee ball?
No, why?
No shit, I was hoping you would know.
Alan Scarpio is thin, about 5'9", scruffy dark brown hair, loose-fitting blondie t-shirt from the 80s, jeans, and a pair of worn-out reef flip-flops. We met him in his games room.
What's funny about her description of Scorpio is that the whole 80s thing, a friend of mine, I had sinuses. A friend of mine, I got an extra copy of the novel, the Rabbits novels, so I sent it to a friend of mine who's a much better, much proficient reader than I am. And he said he enjoyed the story, and they kind of overdid the 80s nostalgia, but he did enjoy it. And every time and ever since he told me that, every time in the podcast or when I reread the novel or whatever, and it deliberately, has that 80s type, description stuff that makes me think, kind of gives me a little bit of chuckle.
It was packed with pinball machines and video arcade games from the Golden Age. There was a bowling alley. He was playing skee ball as we entered.
Carly Parker. I hear you like playing games.
You here?
Yeah, don't worry, I'm not stalking you. I made a few inquiries after your producer friend called.
What else did you hear?
Well, why don't you introduce me to your friend?
Mrs. Jones.
Jones, is it?
Jones.
Jones, that's it, huh? Just Jones?
That's it.
Yeah, if you say so.
At this point, Alan Scarpio walked over and pressed the play button on a video game console. It seemed like everybody, however remotely or directly connected to rabbits, was interested in old games of some kind or another.
Do you know why they call it Defender?
If I ask why, are you going to tell me that you're asking because you're hoping I know?
There was a TV show in the 60s called The Defenders. That's what inspired it. The team at Williams could only make the planet's surface a pixel wide because of the graphics and computing limitations at the time, but I think it's beautiful. It's simple, it's elegant, clean.
Interesting.
Really?
Guy's name is Eugene Jarvis. He was a pinball guy.
Yeah, it's we're getting into back to the whole 80s nostalgia thing, which I find it kind of cool. Just because I remember there's a 7-Eleven a couple blocks from my house, stopping at 7-Eleven on my way to school, playing a couple games and going to school. So yeah, it's, nostalgia, plus the arcades in the mall, like the Clean Mall back in its heyday in the 80s, had a couple really nice arcades with a little bit of everything.
Defender was his first shot at video games, and it happened to be Williams' best-selling game. He and his team invented side-scrolling.
Which continued with Stargate.
Yeah, well, Stargate's a better game.
I totally agree.
But you've played Defender too.
Yes, I have.
The only version in existence.
If you say so.
How'd you like it?
It's exactly the same as Stargate.
Is it?
Yes. Well, okay, there are a few quirks.
A pixel-drawn version of your friend Yumiko's face, perhaps?
And that is always, when somebody knows some stuff like that, it kind of gets creepy quick. And with that, I'll leave you with this to ponder to the next episode. Until next time, peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?